Well, folks, another Saturday is upon me. Saturday morning to be exact. Not really the nicest day out, and to be honest, the bugs are pretty much in full force. What I'm going to get up to today is try to take off one of those to-do list items that I've been putting off. Not really that long, but I've been thinking about for a long time, and so I'm going to finally get down to doing it, and I'll show you what that is in just a minute. As many of you are aware, I have all kinds of things on the go around here. I don't really get around to all of them at the exact time I want to, probably like many of you, because I have a day job. My day job is something I really like to do, but as you can imagine, it keeps me quite busy, so I got to balance things. The thing I'm going to balance today, and the thing I'm going to talk about today and show you today, involves this lumber pile. This lumber pile right here in front of you is a lumber pile I unfortunately had to purchase. I had to buy it down at the lumber yard because I didn't have any dry lumber available to me. You're probably saying, you got an endless supply of lumber out in the bush, why aren't you using that? Well, I'm installing some kitchen cabinets at my house, and in order to do so, I want to make sure the lumber that I'm putting in the house is perfectly dry. I can't exactly say the lumber I've got out in the bush drying is perfectly dry yet, so I had to break down and open the wallet. What you're going to see me get up to today is basically take these 15 2x6 by 8s and the one 2x6 by 10 spruce and make it into some bases for some kitchen cabinets. Now, like many of you, I like to build things, and I don't exactly share everything I build with you because some of it is probably not that interesting, but I am going to share what I'm building today out here in the shop. Building the base of an Ikea kitchen cabinet set, and some of you guys might have installed those before. They're good value, I think. Instead of using their setup, Ikea's, for the base, I'm going to use my own. That's what I'm up against today. So I'm going to take this with those screws, ultimately going to use these shingles to do some shimming, and I'm going to make some solid bases for my kitchen cabinets. In the end, that'll be one of the things off my to-do list, but as you can see around you, I've got a whole bunch of other stuff on the go, some of which I haven't even told you about. Like this wood stove behind you. This wood stove I just picked up, probably about a month ago. It's an Osborne wood stove, and maybe we'll have a little look-see at it. You can see Osborne. Can't even remember what model it is. What we got on there? Osborne 2400. So it's a pretty big wood stove. This thing's about 30 years old. But this is another project I have on the go. Picked it up nice and cheap. This is going to replace my my even older wood stove in my house. And I just want to spruce it up here a little bit with some black stove paint. So you'll see that coming down the pipe here in not too long. Some other projects you can see, well, I got some furniture in here, and I'm doing a bit of work on that, and I'm not going to tell you what exactly I'm doing with that, but that's going to sit there for the time being, probably for the next couple episodes at least. Anyways, that's what I'm up against, in addition to doing some more grinding of my sawmill blades and some setting of the teeth. You guys have seen all this before, so as you can imagine, my time is a bit limited, and like many of you, I got to pick and choose what I'm up against. Today I'm up against that lumber pile. Hopefully I can get it done so that I don't add another incomplete, partially finished job to my list. Anyways, that was a mouthful. Glad you guys are all here. I got to clean this place up here briefly, and once I'm done that, you'll see me starting to cut. Welcome back. All right, well, here's what we're up against. So that's my basic cabinet layout, and in red there is what I want to make for my my bases. So I like to make a cut list before I get going, and you guys can see I've got a cut list here. It's kind of looking like chicken scratch, but if you zoom in on it, what it does is it takes all the different come on back to me. It takes all the different dimensions into account and makes sure that I minimize the amount of wasted material I have, because lumber is definitely not cheap, and either is my time, and so I want to make sure to use both of those wisely. So that's what I'm up against. I got my lumber and I got a plan, so let's put her into action. All right, guys, well, I think we got her licked there. So as you can see, I got a big pile of lumber behind me. It's all cut to length. Now the unfortunate part is I need to rip it down to 5 inches. So this is a 2x6, so it's 5.5 inches wide. Ripping her down a 1/2 inch on the table saw. I decided to cut all the pieces to length first because it's easier for me to handle on my table saw. If I have an 8-foot piece, it's a bit precarious and I don't get the most precise cut, and I want to be precise here. That's a lot to take in. Anyways, raining pretty good out there, so beautiful place to be today. Not really the most ideal conditions to be out there cutting wood, so I'll cut wood inside here instead. Anyways, let's head over to the table saw. We'll get that ripped down to length. Then I can break out the screw gun, put them together, and boom, on to the next thing. And just before I head over to the table saw, just going to talk about this jobber here. This is my DeWalt compound miter saw. This actually tilts both directions, does all kinds of cuts. Really good tool. I've had this for quite a long time. Now, one thing with this that I never had until owning this tool was one of those light lines. Now, some of the saws, some of the miter saws out there have a laser line. This one uses a light. And as you can see, as I bring the saw down to the material, we'll zoom right in there so you guys can see. You guys see that right there? I don't know if you can or not, but let's pull her forward a bit. Yeah, you guys can see that line there. That line is a beautiful thing. Up until that point, what I was having to do in order to make sure my cuts were going to be accurate, I had to duck my head down here and check with the blade over and over, and that takes time. Well, with that light, I make a mark on the wood. I bring the saw down to it. If it's right where it needs to be, boom, the cut's done. Anyways, that's a pretty solid feature if you're looking for a new saw. Definitely one that I would pick up if I had to buy one. All right, guys, well, I think I did it. I think I got it done here, and as you guys can tell, I've got all the pieces built except for this top one in my top right hand, top left corner to you. Reason I don't have that one built is I built it actually in 2 sections, and so technically it's built, it's just not assembled. So I got everything built. That's going to give me a good platform, I think, for my kitchen cabinets to sit on. If you guys were curious how this goes together, well, it's pretty simple. You take the width of the cabinet and you make it so that each cabinet has some support it sits under, or that sits under it. So if you can imagine this stretch here, this will go along a wall. One cabinet, which is 36 inches wide, will land halfway on this particular piece of wood and halfway on this particular piece of wood. And then the next cabinet starts on that piece of wood and carries on to the next. And so that's basically it. These are 5-inch cut down 2x6. And I think this will provide a very solid base, no pun intended, for my kitchen. So I'll probably bring you guys along at some point as I'm installing this. I don't know when that is going to be because I got a lot of other things I got on the go. And if any of you have done any kitchen renovations, you know you have to wait on people from time to time, you know, plumbers, electrical, HVAC, whatever. So some of that stuff I'm actually waiting on, and I will get to this one day. Probably not real soon, but one day, and maybe I'll bring you guys along to see how it goes. Anyways, that's it for me. Appreciate you guys hanging out in the shop. It's actually cleared up a little bit out there, so I might get outside and do some outside stuff for the rest of the day. Anyways, hope you guys are all well out there. Thanks again for watching, and make sure you come on back next time.